Hey everyone, it's time to Nephis and chill. In this video, as requested by a lot of people, I'll finally be talking about my opinion on the account-wide achievements and titles, how the account-wide achievements work, at least from the Week 1 PTS cycle of the Ascending Tide DLC, otherwise known as Update 33, and my opinion as to why none of this matters, and why you should actually be upset. As a forward, I checked out Skinny Cheek's video on this as he presents compromises or potential solutions, whereas in this video, and in a rather rare ESO forum thread from me, I wrote out my thoughts. I argue that all the reactions, both positive and negative, are ultimately irrelevant to what the discussion should be about. First, let's look at how the account-wide achievements and titles work.
Meme Think Extra had 100% of the game on multiple characters, dude.
They did. And I feel bad.
100%
like,
on multiple characters.
It's I can't get skills when I press abilities, man. Who cares about achievements? My fucking abilities don't go off, man, when I press
Let's
them.
talk about the real issues, right?
So, beginning with the next patch, you need to log into all of your characters to have the achievements registered account-wide. Yes, all titles are shareable across every character, although PvP ranks are not and are separated and distinguished from this. What isn't shared account-wide are Enchanting Rune Knowledge achievements and the knowledge of runes in general. Motif Crafting Knowledge, you still have the achievement but not the knowledge itself of the styles on the characters you don't have it. Lore Books Read, including in the Eidetic Memory and Shadowlore's Library sections. Sky Shards obtained by a character. Public Dungeon Group Event achievements. And Dragon Guard Sanctum Daily achievements. It is interesting to note that whichever character got an achievement first, their name is shown when hovered over the achievement itself on whatever character you're browsing your achievements on. Next, let's talk about the reactions to this change. For the most part, the results are as expected, from polling on my end, and regardless of the sample size and where I took the poll, like in this case Twitter or YouTube, the numbers are pretty much the same. More than 60% of people like the implementation, close to 10% don't, and a sizable chunk of 20-ish% of people have mixed feelings, whether that mixed feelings are about a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of arguments or opinions coming from different sources, all of which I have problems with, but I also understand or can sympathize with to a degree. So let's do a simple overview of these arguments. Point A. You should be playing for the fun of it. Why do you care about titles or achievements? I derive satisfaction from other sources like collecting stuff or questing. Why can't you? Honestly, I don't know why people who have no stakes at all even bother giving their input. Like, if people value something else that previously did not hurt or matter to you, why would people caring about them now matter to you? And I've seen some of the comments on Skinny Cheek's videos from, the toxic casuals, saying, oh, you just want to flex your title on Reddit. Like, who the fuck cares about Reddit? Like, you know what I mean? So, I don't know where these people are coming from, but this point is, like, literally the most stupid one. Part B, I want to be able to track achievements separately on both my account and character, or I have immersion issues.
Immersion in the game, I get that there are a lot of immersion breaking things in the game. I'm just saying that it shouldn't become worse, right? It shouldn't be, like, even more immersion breaking. That's what I'm saying.
If it's that important to you, then you would remember which character you got it on, to be honest with you. Right?
Well, I don't really have like a memory that's that big, I'm sorry.
Okay, but how many achievements are important to you?
I don't care, Jude.
What? What do you mean doesn't care?
I don't give a shit. I just want
to... No, what is important to you with this system? Okay, fair enough. This is already a very subjective field of a sense of reward or progression for a lot of different people. But probably someone out there on PC will make an add-on for this purpose that builds better on what ZOS is implementing, but for players on console, they're kinda out of luck. Otherwise, this is mostly a minor counterpoint in the sea of voices against account-wide titles. And also, I want to mention that, fine, if they can somehow separate account achievements from character achievements, great, whatever, doesn't hurt anybody. Point C, account-wide titles are dangerous. They let people who haven't done those trifectas or achievements put the titles on characters with which they haven't done the content before. This is a really dumb fucking take. A lot of people keep bringing this up as some spooky boogeyman where suddenly hundreds of raiders or shitters will willingly put on, a title on a healer if they got Planesbreaker on the tank. And that's somehow gonna become this epidemic of, oh my god, I can't make these roster decisions or whatever. But the choice to put a title on your level 4 character, or whatever character, is up to you, and doesn't at all prevent you from not doing or replaying the content, something I'll talk about here in a bit. Someone putting a title on their character does not hurt you or your team whatsoever. There is a cultural difference, however, between PC and console, though, which explains why a large part of these complaints come from console players, because like PC in the years past, console players tend to equate skill and status of a player to the direct achievement, skin, or title of a player's character, so this is certainly a upsetting shakeup in that regard. PC players, for the most part, not that I'm saying there aren't PC players who feel somewhat the same way, have ESO logs, combat metrics, and other venues to pursue a sense of progress or status, whereas console players really don't. I mean, console players don't even know how much DPS they do in the trial or what their debuff times are like, so I understand this completely. I also have a couple more different problems with this argument, because what about mounts? You can equip your Planesbreaker, Godslayer mount, or mementos or skins on any character and ride it around or use it. Someone actually told me on stream, well, Nephis, that's different, that's account-wide. That's always been account-wide. And my counterpoint to that would be, well, that's just kind of an artificial framing of your perception of how a reward functions. It absolutely has no bearing on your skill as a player whatsoever, or your sense of accomplishment in objective reality, whether you want to equip a mount on a level 4 character or equip a title on a level 4 character. My next problem with this argument is that you can buy carries. You know, like, people who bought carries can equip all of this shit already, so why does this even matter? Do your Rayleighs not have eyes to judge a person's performance? Do you not notice how players move or weave to see if they're experienced in that content? Like, why are you assuming people can just sabotage or sneak in or infiltrate your rosters? I don't understand what's going on here. Which brings us to the next point being made. Let's say there is merit to this argument, and assume the worst. Why are the same players who are experienced going for these titles, these skilled players, saying that they are suddenly dumb or amnesiacs? There is a huge difference between Dragon Knight tanking TikTok Tormentor for the first time and Sorcerer DPSing TikTok Tormentor for the second or third time. You don't just suddenly lose all of the experience, knowledge, and insight gained from progressing with your group of friends or your raid team. Like, surely, if you are spending months in a trial as a healer, and you want to try DPSing it for the same title after you're done the first run, you would know as a DPS to know what to do, where to stand, or what to watch out for. And you see this with a lot of players everywhere, including myself, who can transition between roles for the same content, because we don't just suddenly forget all the progress we did. My point here is that it has never been about the characters. When I, as a raid lead, ask people about their performance, I ask them, what are your uptimes? What's your DPS? Or whatever on your Templar? When we congratulate people for their Godslayers, we say their account names or guild names, not their character names. Your opinion on the player's skill is objectively not measured by a character's race, class, or weapon choices. It's determined by the player themselves. I'm not asking a character for advice. I'm asking the player for the advice if I want to ask them for advice. Like, why would I be more impressed by Style Anima Kite Healing VAS hard mode with 50k DPS on Olms as opposed to Style Anima Kite Healing VAS hard mode with 50k as a Templar on Olms? Like, who the hell cares at the end of the day? It was the player, not the character. And lastly, point D, and there are some other smaller arguments somewhere in between each one, but I'm just going to focus on the main ones here. Point D, I'm going to quit the game. Replayability of content has gone down because I can no longer pursue playing a different role, or I am afraid that raiders will be less willing to help first-timers chasing titles out, so it kills endgame. So, some of this point I am sympathetic to, because yes, titles to a degree are one of the few things a lot of endgame players do derive some sense of progress or reward from, which I'll get into later, but I have a lot of issues with this statement because this argument is assuming suddenly that you lack the freedom to not pursue a goal. It's also funny to me that a lot of players who are worried right now that they won't be able to find experienced groups help the next patch still can't find experienced groups right now. So the absurdity of this lack of objective difference is actually quite hilarious to me. And, man, out of all the things people think is going to kill off the endgame PvE community, this is literally one of the most tamest things I've seen throughout the 8 years I've been playing. But Nephis, it's all about the reward. The dopamine rush, or whatever, when you get your 3rd or 4th Immortal Redeemer title, and I'd be incredibly skeptical to accept this because I've gotten multiple trifectas in multiple trials, and I know a lot of you who watch me also got multiple trifectas in multiple trials. That dopamine rush you get from getting your first God Slayer, or the tremors in your hands as you're like one person away from killing Assembly General and wondering who's gonna fuck up and die, is absolutely nothing compared to the 3rd or 4th or 10th time you do it. There's absolutely no way. I've seen so many raiders that just go, oh, okay, we got it. Let's move on, because it's their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time. But I've seen a lot of us be happy or derive satisfaction from maybe the fact that we helped a group or new group of players get that title for the first time. The dopamine rush from achieving something yourself as an endgame player, in my opinion, steadily becomes replaced by the dopamine rush of helping others achieve something, unless you want to transition to score pushing, where you get a different sense of achievement or progression. So this all begs the question, what do you do as an endgame player? What do you value? Is it the title chasing? Will you value, transitions towards, will your values transitions toward score pushing? Is it the achievements? Is it the value of the social interactions you get? Or is it something else? Regardless of all this, or regardless of whether you agree with me or not, and regardless of whether there's some sort of compromise from ZOS, like a gilded title system, which in itself is a short-term band-aid to appease people, none of this objectively changes anything in the long run for any of us. What the real focus here should be is why we're upset. And this brings me to the second to last final segment of this video. Rewards. I'm not going to get too heavily into this because I've written all out, which you can read with the forum link down below, but this is it. This discussion has been a long time coming. It's inevitable. There's something we've all unanimously can agree upon, not just as endgame players, but as ESO players. The rewards are lacking. There is no reward system. There is no consistent structuring of rewards for any kind of player, whether it's PvP, PvE, or questing, or what have you. One could even argue that the rewards from DLC dungeons and so forth have actually scaled down considerably in recent years. I am hard-pressed to yet find a single player or content creator that has said, you know what, there's enough rewards for me in this activity I've chosen. I mean, like, even Deltia came back to this game recently after more than 2 years, and even he's like, where are the rewards? We are steadily approaching the 10th year anniversary of ESO's official launch. That's freaking crazy. And the fact that we don't have proper incentives or rewards anywhere across the board, both accessible to casual players and encouraging to veteran players, is something we need to be upset about and something we need to bring up. I'm upset because people are so focused on the short term of all this fighting over scraps, about titles or whatever. Just do this quick experiment for me if you're at this point in the video. Come up with an idea for rewards, or an incentivizing system for doing trials or battlegrounds or whatever in your head. Maybe you've already thought about it before, and you proposed such ideas to your friends or the public forums. Now, say that idea out loud. Does it sound like a good idea? Of course it does, because it is like filling up the vast void of nothingness. Anything is better than nothing. We're at this point where any idea is a good idea, and that's bad. If ZOS makes a gilded title system or whatever compromise, that should not be the end of the discussion. I don't care about any of that stuff, because that stuff is, again, short term and doesn't really solve any of the issues we may see in terms of a sense of reward. And this, compared to, I don't know, like 200 earnable mounts in Final Fantasy XIV, why do you have to spend money and gamble for your rewards as opposed to earning them? This is something really important we need to ask constantly at this point, and this needs to be voiced quite loudly, the same way account-wide achievements have been bolstered by the majority. We're extremely lucky in this because we are also the majority. There is no longer a need for discussion of what endgame PvE needs or what endgame PvP needs. This should be a discussion of what reward system, with both one-time and perennial rewards in ESO, can be good for all, or worst case scenario, most ESO players. All this backlash over titles, to me, is an unconscious reflection of this desire and the situation, much like how the respec scroll fiasco was reflective of the crown sword fatigue and other growing issues in the game. So you need to ask yourself and your friends who may not even do the same activities as you, are you satisfied with ESO's rewards? Are you okay with the stark contrast in quality, quantity, and availability between rewards in the base game versus the Crown Store that's led to titles being one of the few things you cling to? If your answer is yes, well, cool. If your answer is no, you should keep bringing it up, no matter where, whether it's on the forums, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's with your friends who may not care as well about the rewards. Because I think, regardless of your opinion, there is something amiss here. Lastly, for the last segment of the video, on the top of the positives of account-wide achievements and titles to a degree. Big congrats to Elias for his 30-second Master Angler before the patch. You would think he'd be like one of the most angry people in regards to it, but I think we can kind of see, even if we have mixed feelings about the title thing, that it's more positives than negatives. Like, for example, in regards to raiding, this kind of lets people, get away from the main characters. There's been always this issue where, hey, I want to play my main character in raids, but your team needs a necromancer, but I want my planesbreaker on my main sork, not my necromancer. So this is something I think positive in that regard, and it can actually grow interest in other activities. So it's not all doom and gloom, in my opinion. And I think for some other activities where you may have been unable to do specific achievements, like in PvP or BGs, this is certainly a venue for a lot of people. So there's a reason why a majority of people really do like the implementation of the system. Can it be better? Absolutely. Can other things be better? Absolutely. But for the time being, this is, in my opinion, not the hill to die on. I think the hill to die on is, of course, the lack of rewards and the reward system. But that's pretty much all I have to say on this topic. And again, it's okay if you disagree with my points. It's totally fine. And I think this should provoke more discussion, honestly. And yeah, thanks for watching. Stay safe and have fun, guys.